This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thanks for letting me do this for so long. Hey, so people seem to really enjoy my last video on Tears of the Kingdom, possibly because this game's still incredibly relevant right now, so it only seems right that I go around again for another crack at ranking things from this game. The dungeons were good and home to some real highlights, but Zelda games have had awesome boss fights for decades. Maybe not Breath of the Wild. So you'd have to think that Tears of the Kingdom has some pretty tasty battles in it. In fact, it has so many fights that I have to classify what counts as a boss fight, which for a completely arbitrary reason is any fight that has this big health bar at the top, but not the horde fights against multiple enemies because they really don't count as boss fights. Also, Lionels are normal enemies because you don't have a health bar at the top. I have to make these restrictions because I would like this video to be finished before the next Zelda game comes out. You know, it'd be nice. Hey, do you know what fight kind of isn't a boss but has a health bar anyway, so I have to talk about it? You know Bo's little 20-second sparring match where he gets the purple eyes, which I'm a little annoyed with, since I'd probably enjoy this fight a lot more if he wasn't rocking that Mario health, you know? 3 hits and he's down, with each hit breaking something to signify progress in a fight. Yeah, it's literally as simple as avoiding his one attack and hitting him with any weapon. Can't believe they made him an actual drug lord. What happened? On the topic of short, weird boss fights, does anyone else remember that ooey gooey like in the Zora area? Yeah, that counts as well, even though it's definitely more of a mini-boss, but maybe I should give it the respect it deserves, since apparently a ton of people struggled with this fight. It's a little different to the other likes in the game, since this is where Tears of the Kingdom wants to teach you about Sidon's ability to shoot out water and clear the sludge away, and once you get it to show you its nasty tongue thing, it's pretty simple from there. I mean, maybe people struggle with the blobs of shit it shoots out, but I was done with this thing very quickly. So do likes have feet, or... Gloom Hands are some of the most aggressive and terrifying normal enemies in Tears of the Kingdom, so you'd imagine that if you were to somehow defeat them, you'd be rewarded with something really valuable. No, actually, you get a single Phantom Ganon who rises out of the gloom and slowly tries to land a sword slash on you. The first time this happens, it's a huge shock and there's a chance that you'll be overwhelmed by what is ultimately a strong enemy, but the more you fight them, the more you realize that going from Gloom Hands to Phantom Ganon is a downgrade. Probably says more about how effective the Gloom Hands are than the diminishing returns of putting Phantom Ganon in the overworld. They should put him at the end of a dungeon or something, that'd be cool. The best thing that Moldugas have going for them is their music, which is such a bop that they're worth going after for that alone. I don't think anything has changed with Moldugas in Tears of the Kingdom, which means that they're just as easy to kill as they were in Breath of the Wild, albeit without the ease of infinite bombs. If you get onto solid land, there's literally nothing that it can do to hurt you, and even without the bomb runes, it's just too easy to strap a bomb flower to an arrow and fuck it up from a distance. They're more kind of annoying whenever you're roaming the desert and you either see the dust clouds or hear that bomb-ass music. At that point, I'm just happy to hear the music. Here's one of 2 occasions where I'm going to give an additional spoiler warning and the option to skip ahead, since I'm going to talk about literally the end of the game. Everyone gone who needed to go? Awesome. I am personally very glad that the Demon Dragon has a lot more going on with it than Dark Beast Ganon from Breath of the Wild. They're very similar in terms of scope and general location, but I appreciate that the Demon Dragon uses skydiving in a fun way and is able to get the Zelda Dragon involved as well. The weak spots are a little too video gamey, which is something I didn't appreciate with Dark Beast Ganon either, but at least the Demon Dragon is somewhat of a threat to your health. I just wish he paid more attention to me and, you know, tried to kill me a little more often. One boss who just seemed happy to be there would be the boss of the water temple, Muktarok. I did wonder what classic Zelda boss would be repurposed to be able to launch out all of this sludge, and in the end it's a strangely human-like Octorok who becomes this mud shark sometimes. Same strategy as for like, which is a little disappointing, but at least you get to see the Muktarok run around like a little weirdo. You take a hydrant into this fight and he's got no chance. Taluses are a little similar to Moldugas in that I forgot they were in this game. The similarities end there, thankfully, since Taluses come with at least 2 new features that make fighting them at least somewhat unique in Tears of the Kingdom. The biggest improvement is the new Battle Talus, who houses a small camp of bokoblins on his head, which is mostly pointless since you can dispatch them quickly, but it's another source of attacks to worry about. Coupled with being able to use Ascend to climb through the talus, and you've got a few extra things to think about with these guys. Still very weak to any kind of mining weapon though. As the first dungeon boss that I thought Queen Gibdo was pretty awesome. You get a little taste before you even step foot inside the Lightning Temple, which is where I was slightly annihilated by a boss that is clearly designed for you to have decent armor and resistances, and once you're done with this dungeon, there's a proper boss fight at the end of it. There's a lot to like about Queen Gibdo, and I do love the design and setting and how it uses a concentrated beam of sand to damage you, but I'm not such a fan of the second stage, where the enemy spam gets a little too annoying. I also remember running out of arrows, so you really do need to be mindful of your resources. Especially your health. Hinoxes are like the standard Zelda overworld boss. No special way of damaging them apart from shooting them in their big ugly eyeball, and it's not like they're trying particularly hard to hide themselves in the environment. Do you reckon Ganon knows that they're literally sleeping on the job? They can often act as a skill check and a DPS check, since if you're running around with crappy weapons, you'll have a hard time doing enough damage to get past even the weakest variant of Hinox. But hey, they're big and obvious, and you can completely avoid them really easily, so it's on you if you can't handle them. Hey guys, real quick, my channel has been approved for YouTube memberships now, so if you fancy supporting my channel more directly, you can become a member for as little as £1 a month and gain access to some nifty perks, as well as being featured on my channel page. Hit the join button below this video if that sounds cool to you. Thank you, and let's get back to the video. Oh boy, is it good to see Gohma back in a Zelda game. I think Armor Gohma was the last time we saw it way back in Twilight Princess, and that was angling for more of a creepy spider angle, but Marbled Gohma is a lot less scary and is more like an armored crab or something with 4 legs. I like the design a lot and it fits in nicely with the Fire Temple, but Marbled Gohma is actually quite an easy fight once you know what you need to do. It relies a lot on Yonobo's ability to be launched around the arena to knock some legs off of Gohma, but there's a few nifty uses for recall, so you're not just relying on your ally the whole time. It's not the hardest fight in the game, but throwing Yonobo around was pretty entertaining. It's like a solid 7 out of 10 fight. You never forget your first encounter with a Frox. A friend of mine told me that there's a unique boss fight to be done in the depths, so I guess I had a bit of a heads up, but I wasn't really thinking about that when I was trying hard to not be eaten by this creature that I couldn't really see properly. Froxes are like a cross between Hinoxes and Taluses, but with the agility of a frog that really wants to squish you. It's a tricky fight that becomes a little easier if you've got something explosive to stick in its mouth and a mining weapon to smash its ore deposit weak spots, but most of the challenge comes from avoiding all the gloom on the ground in the depths. I gotta say that it's only so difficult because you're overcoming the surprise of finding your first Frox. They blend in a little too well down here. So, I know I talked smack about Colgera being disappointing last week, but that was me launching arrows at its weak spot instead of doing the seemingly more intended strategy of skydiving, and now I fought it again with this new strategy. Holy shit, this is so much better! This thing is all about making your jaw drop, and while Colgera still isn't all that hard, as what is likely to be the first big fight in the game for so many, this is some majorly impressive stuff right here. If you go for those skydives, not only is it unbelievably satisfying to pull off, but it makes the fight last long enough for Dragon Roost Island to burst through on the soundtrack. Every hair on my body stood up at the same time, I swear to God. For how many of them I ended up fighting, I almost felt like I had to like the Flux Constructs eventually. They're trivial to defeat these days because I started to seek them out when I realized how cool these fights were, but as the first real challenge in Tears of the Kingdom, the Flux Constructs do a damn good job of demonstrating how Link's new arm can be used in combat. You got 3 different forms that all aim to get the most out of one of Link's abilities, with the latter versions of the constructs just being that tad more challenging to tackle. When I realized I could rewind these blocks and ride them up to this platform, my smile was massive. And not to be outdone, the Spirit Temple was keeping hidden the best construct fight in the game. One that doesn't work anything like the Flux Constructs and in fact has you punch the shit out of each other with robots. The Seized Construct is goofy and stupid and so clearly someone's desire to have Link step into a boxing ring for some reason, but being able to attach objects like spike balls and cannons to the arms of your own piloted mech is just wish fulfillment on a scale that I didn't think was possible in a Zelda game. It's played completely straight and serious, but fighting the Seized Construct ends up being one of the funnier bosses in the game. Maybe Ganondorf and Link should have settled their differences Punch-Out style. Link would have been folded like laundry. It is a shame that Phantom Ganon can only be fought as an underwhelming follow-up to the Gloom Hands, because in the right setting, this could be pretty amazing. Oh damn, is that the right setting I see? How about that shit? The Phantom Ganons, plural, that you fight in Hyrule Castle are so much better than their overworld equivalent. Because while you might think, if you're a simpleton, that there's no major difference here, fighting 5 Phantom Ganons in the old throne room of the decaying floating Hyrule Castle is some grade A awesome shit. I struggled big time with this fight because I wasn't willing to let my entourage of spirits to distract most of the Phantom Ganons, but even once you've worked that out and you've knocked the stuffing out of them, there's a second stage where you need to target the one Phantom Ganon who's redecorating the throne room with gloom. Just love it to pieces. Gloom hands can't compare, honestly. Of all the things that Nintendo kept quiet, I don't think anyone even contemplated that Master Koga would be in this game. But hey, it makes sense if he fell down that pit in the last game and has been chilling out in the depths ever since, and naturally he'd want to take some revenge on Link using some of the nifty Zonai devices that can be found down here. I think there's 4 different Koga fights in the game, but it's all you versus him piloting one of his contraptions, and it is beautiful to see all these scenarios on land or water or flying through air with a cannon. Boss fights in this game rarely require you to use Zonai devices, so these fights are just a treat from start to finish. I need Koga in every game now, Zelda or otherwise. Given that the Goron area pitted you against Yunobo and is not quite boss fight, you can imagine how pleasantly surprised I was when Tears of the Kingdom said, hey, could you hop on this plane and launch a flaming Goron into this rock monster that's wriggled out of Death Mountain? Yeah, that's a pretty amazing scenario, and even though Miragia is a fairly easy fight that doesn't ask a lot of you, it's comfortably one of the most spectacular in the game. I was worried that Tears of the Kingdom would give you all these vehicles and not have at least one fight to show them off, but Miragia is a ton of fun for the few minutes you get to fight it. I'm very happy that we've returned to a point where major boss fights just kind of pop up out of nowhere, and long may it continue. One of the first places I visited as soon as I was done with the tutorial was Lake Hylia, because you can't show off a Gleeok in early trailers and expect me to not want to know a hell of a lot more about that. This was obviously a mistake because Gleeoks are probably the most challenging new boss fight added to the overworld, and if you don't have a large pool of health or an even larger pool of talent, you're getting torn apart in no time at all. Eventually though, I worked out a strategy and took down my first Gleeok, which was the insane spectacle that I thought it would be, and one that could carry through to the other Gleeoks as well. I already loved this fight before, but once I found the King Gleeok with heads of 3 different elements, it went up a few more levels. Absolutely no messing around here. Alright, so here's the other major spoiler warning for the end of Tears of the Kingdom, but we're nearly done, so just click off the video if you're really worried. There's a lot to love about this game, but I'm unbelievably happy that they did Ganondorf so well, and finally gave you a fight against him that matches his standing as a villain. My guy rehydrates just in time to step it to Link, and the orchestra wakes up just in time to underline that he is indeed the Demon King, and then the fight that follows is honestly perfect. Like, no further notes, perfect. A one-on-one sword fight with an incredibly powerful opponent who cycles through 4 different weapons and a host of magic attacks, and goes from a moisturized daddy to the drip god himself with a flowing red hair and a health bar that just keeps going. I mean, I was already convinced that this was the best fight in the game, but when he perfect dodged one of my attacks, and then again when I tried to flurry rush him, so you actually need to land 2 perfect dodges in a row for this to work. I mean, come on now. Is this the best Ganondorf fight we've ever had? I think it might just be, you know? And barely a tennis match in sight. And I think that's every boss in Tears of the Kingdom. Do you agree with my rankings, or is there something else you'd have at number 1? Let me know in a comment down below, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more in the future, and hit that bell for notifications of every new upload. If you need something else to watch right now, I ranked the Tears of the Kingdom dungeons last week, and I also want to thank my top supporters on Patreon, including the Green Scorpion, Sarah Malion, and Devon Hutt. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.